Ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. Joel Felsenstein. Love you, brother. Thank you so much. My friend from the UK who runs Rockstar X. Different, not less. I say it every single show. I never get tired of it. Such a great intro, outro video. You are so talented, my friend. Thank you so much for all you do for the autistic and neurodiverse communities. You're incredible. Our sponsors for today, Circle of Friends Club, Jason Wilson. If you don't know Jason Wilson in the Circle of Friends Club, you need to get connected. This guy is doing all kinds of things. And our next, I believe it is in November, that he is going to have his next Freedom Fight Expo. We'll have him on the show again. We normally have him like within a week or so of the Freedom Fight Expo. Love what he's doing. Nick, the gifted bipolar writer. I am in a trilogy of anthologies that is getting ready to release. So look out for the book. This is my second book that I've written. I've been in 2 anthologies. This is the second one. The first one was telling a little bit about my story, which I've never released anywhere. If you didn't get a copy of that, reach out to me. I will show you where that is. You can purchase it. I think it's like $9.99. There's, I think, 20 authors in that book. And I talk about my past and how it's led to what we're doing today. But this one is about how I got on LinkedIn and what that journey's been like and why I stayed. So Nick is absolutely incredible. One of the best people to work with when you're publishing a book. I have no doubt that this is going to be an international bestseller. Very excited for this. Janet Mohapi Banks, she is incredible. I feel like she's just like my sister, you know, but she wrote this amazing book, which I got a signed copy for. I've been to several of her workshops, and she is doing another major event that you can sign up for. It actually is connected to this. So it's the workshop that's connected to the book. You need to sign up for that because she's got a waiting list actually to get on. So make sure you get your spot, sign in, get ready to just learn, grow, have an amazing conversation. She is so amazing. It's so awesome. Jenny Ford. You may know her as Jen Lynn UBN on LinkedIn, but she has this incredible event with all of these speakers. I know Kinga and her, and I think Crystal, a lot of people that come to the show and that we've talked with. There's so many, Crystal Phoenix, there's like so many incredible people that are going to be part of the speakers. It goes from like December 1st to December 22nd, which is my birthday. And we're going to be on there just having a good time. But she gave my wife and I an award, which I you know me, I started blubbering. It was so incredible. She gave my wife the Victory Award, and it stands, I can't even tell you what the acronym stands for. And then she gave me the Hero Award that has to do for our humanitarian work with HR for You and Transformation Kitchen. So I am deeply honored. Both of us are deeply honored. And Jen has got this incredible 21-day event. Get your tickets now. The Outlier Project. I've been part of the Outlier Project since 2022. And they have just been so incredible for me and for my family. They have a lot of amazing people. There's over 700, good grief, I think it's like 800 now in almost 30 countries. Just absolutely the best people. I was on an author call earlier today, a husband and wife team that wrote this amazing book about good and bad bosses and like the 10 different kinds of bad bosses and why they happen and why those personalities show up. So you want to look at the Outlier Project, please contact me. I'll give you all the deets on that. certainly last but not least, Derek Stroken. Holy cow. I love this dude. I absolutely love him. My Canadian brother. He is incredible, doing such amazing work to help other nonprofits. So he is helping us build through his speaking gigs that he does all over the world. He is helping Baseball Face Cares, which gives baseballs to underserved communities in third world countries and teaches them the game. And then he's helping Transformation Kitchen with a cookbook that we'll be able to sell, and all the proceeds will go back into Transformation Kitchen. So much incredible things happening. If you did not know, Transformation Kitchen will be live. We are launching here in November. Tez is getting his learning on with Chef Casanova, Chef Mike Casanova. You might have seen him on Chopped in August. That aired in August. He's a local legend here in my area, but I am so thrilled to be working with him and be working with Tez Jackson. We are thrilled that on December 6th, save that date, come to us here in Newburgh. If you're in and around the area, you can take the time, come up. We'll be there around 4 o'clock. We're going to be taking pictures. We're going to be cutting the ribbon. We are going to be cooking up some great stuff and giving away free food to show our love to the community, to feed the food insecure, and to tell you more about our program and how it's progressing already. We already have a wait list for people that want to get in. I am so blessed to be part of this and so humbled that God has opened so many doors. I'm going to get emotional here. God has opened so many doors in this last year, but we called it out in fourth quarter of last year, and now it is coming to fruition. I cannot wait to tell you more about it, so stay tuned. But I have taken up enough time. We are here for Professor P in the house. I want you to give it up for Rochelle. You know, I got to do it. My applause got a little crazy there for a second. I don't know what happened. They got tired. They got tired of applauding. Oh my goodness. So thrilled to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
I love being on your show. I love the subject today, 3 keys to authentic connections, rooted to thrive. I love that.
Yes.
For those of you, I'm going to let her. I said, hey, I'm going to do a brief introduction. It ended up me just like applauding her and bringing her on stage. So I'm going to let her take the mic now and tell more about her. And then we're going to get into some questions and enjoy with the audience.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you. It's an honor to be invited to this People's Community event, Jason. I just love the name, okay. I said, the people and community, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
But thank you so much. Yes, I'm Rochelle Peterson Ansari, AKA Professor P. Some of my former students actually gave me that name. And hello, everyone. I see people just chiming in. Hello. I am, first and foremost, a partner, a life partner, a bonus grandmom of 8. Yes, call me Gigi. I have 2 hometowns, Brooklyn, New York, first and foremost, and Philadelphia has been my home much longer actually, than Brooklyn, New York. Love her. So I'm an auntie. I'm all the things. And I have also been a master trainer, coach, educator, mentor, and advocate. And, at the deepest levels, encourager, solution-oriented, and deeply empathetic. So just great to be here. And what you need to know from the start is that I'm on a mission to have every person from pre-K to professional school, have an anti-racist, culturally competent educator in their formal education. Yes, yes. All right.
Yes.
Enough
How
of
fantastic is that?
that.
How fantastic is that?
Yes.
So let's back up for a minute and
Hmm.
talk about kind of your history. I mean, you spent a good amount of time, you had an education background and then did a lot of things as
Yes.
your journey to here. So let's talk a little bit about that and what you saw as an educator that has brought you to this place.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I actually started out, I have known since college, since leaving college, that I was called to education, but not as a certified teacher. In college, I minored in education, majored in sociology, minored in education. And my reason for minoring in education was because I really wanted to raise children in a way that was healthy. And I thought that was a vehicle for me to do that. And, I had traumas in my early years, and that made me feel like I needed to get some more help. Right. And so I started out my career working in higher education, and I've actually spent 36 years in higher ed,
Yeah.
whether it was full-time administrator and then part-time as a faculty member, which is what I still do. I still do now. I am in that journey. I was always focused on helping work with and on behalf of people who were historically marginalized in colleges and universities. And I shifted some years later to focusing on teacher education because I was working with adults at one of the institutions I was teaching at. These were adults that were, 10 years out of high school, coming back to college, and they had such low self-efficacy. And I thought, wow, I'm going to believe in them until they believe in themselves. But before college is where we need to start. And so I shifted my focus on teacher education and really have been there since. When you were talking about the book that where you tell your story, that reminded me of there's going to be a book coming out in 2025 that I'm a part of that talks about my journey.
Nice.
The book itself is a compilation of of chapters written by a number of teacher educators, but this book is called Transformative Teacher Education, Disrupting Pedagogy, Practice, and Ideology to Forge Culturally Relevant and Sustaining Education, coming out in 2025.
Wow.
A group of us in Pennsylvania are a part of an organization called the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium. That was a part of my journey when I was more recently working at a university. In 2020, we started this group. It didn't have that name at the time, but we were working with the Department of Education in the state to work on educator diversity, like the workforce diversity. I believe it's still in our state. We might be at 94% white now. It was 96% white educators or white teachers at the time, and the sitting head of the Department of Education in Pennsylvania really wanted to move the needle on that. And I was a part of a group that began that work.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. So here we are, fast forward, also work in the business. So I started Perceptions Unlimited, LLC. Actually, I started the work of this business in the 90s. But, we became official in 2005, worked it part-time and full-time at different times of my career. But I wanted to have a vehicle that did not have any guardrails.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
Like I wanted to be able to say what I wanted to say.
good for you.
But
Explain to people what Perceptions Unlimited is and what you
yes.
do with your business.
Yes. So the company is in a nutshell, you would call us a diversity, equity, and inclusion training and coaching company, right? We also do consultation, but we really focus on professional development. That's where we're equipped. We have 10 facilitators and consultants and coaches that are involved in the company. They're working part-time for us as well, as needed. However, all educators, all people who have worked across different areas of education, and that's part of our secret sauce, right? Like a number of people who are trying to work with educators come from corporate, which is fine. However, people who know the culture, I insisted on that we would have people who understand the cultures that we're working with. Because nobody wants you to come in and, you're just giving them some surface information. We want to be able to reach our people.
That's great. And I'm glad that you set the boundaries that, hey, in order for us to be effective in this work, we need people that are from our community and understand our community and can give light to our community.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Makes complete sense to me. So, it's, this is interesting because everything you've done still has this veil on the outside of doing the DEIAB work, which I love. And I love that you're part of that because there needs to be more conversations as we hear in the news, and we're pressed to see companies removing things like diversity and their funding for programs and taking the gas off of what really was highlighted in 2019 and 2020, where everybody was on fire for we've got to do something. We've got to make changes happen. And that went on for a couple of years. Here we are in 2024, and now people not only are taking the gas off, but they're just removing stuff. Mm-hmm. So I love that you're not, and right. that it's pressing through everything that you do.
Well, and I was doing this work well before it was popular, right? Like before it was in the public discourse. And I'm grateful for that. I am grateful that more people are talking about the issues. However, yes, when you pull away from it, that means that it was a performance, right? Right. But I don't want to vindicate people, right? Like I don't want people to feel like, she just called us out, right? I believe it's a part of human nature. It's not just a belief, I know it, right? We are going to retreat. And in so many of our cultures, and definitely in our US culture, we are taught to fear and to retreat as a result of that fear. Okay. And when people don't understand something, of course, it's easy to let it go, but they can still continue to do this work, right? I'm just not backing down because, and it's not, maybe it is because I'm a Black person, right? Or maybe it is because I'm a woman or a Black woman that I won't back down, but it does not register in my head, right? Like even when the Supreme Court tried to dial back, they did dial back or reverse, right, the gains around affirmative action in admissions. I was just like, yeah, okay, we've had pushback before. When you are on purpose around justice, there's no turning back.
Good for you.
Until justice is done.
Bravo. Unfortunately, there are not enough people on all different sides of the fence that believe in sticking to that fight, because it's much easier to go with the flow than it is and ride the waves than it is to stand against the current.
Yeah.
So
I know people who do this work who will say, like in a more entrepreneurial space, right? Like I know people who do this work who will say, well, they'll back off if a client pushes back. And I'm just like, well, you're just not the client for us then,
right,
because
yeah,
we want results. We want people who want transformation.
yeah, we don't want people that are going to box check and they're going
Right,
to leave. You're going to
right.
do surface level work,
Hmm.
and I'm going to attach my name to it, and then
Hmm.
you're going to do whatever.
Exactly.
No, agreed.
Hmm.
Tonight you picked the subject, and I loved
Hmm.
it. I loved it. And you said, "Hey, rooted to thrive: 3 keys to authentic connection." So let's jump in. Let's jump
Yes.
in. Where we've gotten a good base now. People get a good feel for
Hmm.
who you are and what's happening with you. But now let's jump into this. And
Yes.
I'm going to let you lead the way, and I'm going to ask questions along the way.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, the 3 keys to authentic connection. So, first of all, a lot of people have talked about, you're being your authentic self, being authentic human connection, etc. I am talking about authentic human connection, but the 3 keys really come from my observed experience and my own life experience, right? With working with thousands of people. I've been working for over 36 years professionally. And before that, right? Like I think my first job was when I was 13. So I've had some time in. And I have always, remember I told you I was a sociology major. So really that helped me focus what how I thought about the world anyway, right? I was always trying to figure out why people did not value difference.
Mm.
Like period, like it's that simple. And I learned that we either were taught it directly or we caught it, right? From what was happening around us or in society, if you will. And we'll talk a little more about that. So I know that authentic connection is one of the things that doesn't happen, right? When we lean into a mindset where difference is a bad thing. And so many people, especially people in service industries, will say, that's not me. I value difference. Well, when you think about it, let's look at your actions and let's see if you really do. And again, I'm calling people in, not calling people out. But one of the things that we often do, right, on platforms like the social media where this will be held, often we're calling people out, right? Like we're just, it's almost like we give up on people. We give up on them.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, that cannot be the answer.
Right.
And one of the things that I'll call it a part of my magic, because I think that I was one of those people who was blessed to be able to naturally connect in very meaningful ways with people. So I had to step back and actually study myself. Like, what is that? I mean, like people tell me their personal business. Like when like when I'm
Just
not.
just like naturally like gravitate to, well,
Okay, so I'm like, okay, what am I doing? And I did a little research on this too, and I was like, there are parallels that we're learning from people in psychology, the social sciences, but mainly from psychology as well, around connection. And I have a spiritual base that absolutely prioritizes our interdependence. So when I talk about 3 keys to authentic connection, I really think there are subcategories within them all. So there's more than 3. But but the 3 keys are introspection, interdependent thinking, and listening. Okay, so I'll say it again: introspection, interdependent thinking, and listening. So, what do I mean by authentic? First of all, anything that's real, genuine, not false, not surface level. Okay, if you compile all of the different dictionary definitions, you'll get some semblance of that especially when we're talking about people, but also things. What do I mean by connection? A relationship in which a person, I am only talking about a person here, is linked and associated with someone else. And as we know, across many differences, we are not connected, right? Many of us are not. So, introspection. Intentional introspection on who you are is important. It is necessary. Now, I look at this from a 2-pronged approach. First, introspection about yourself. You need to ask, do you even accept yourself? It's really difficult if you can't accept yourself to accept other people.
Yeah, I almost would say that that's impossible.
Right. And we have to accept our strengths, our weaknesses, our successes and our failures, our joys and our sorrows, right? Seek to accept yourself first. That's one level of introspection. And now I want you to think about, do you really connect with others? Especially those whose social identities, right? Like, so these big categories, when I say social identities, I'm talking about race, ethnicity, social class, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity. We can go on, but you get the picture, right? So across those social identities, those people who you don't have common social identities with, do you really connect with them? This introspection requires you to take a look at what you were taught and what you caught. I believe it's the number one thing that's missing, especially for those of us who are in service industries, especially those that are professions, right? Like people preparing for professions in the service industries. We are serving people. It's the number one thing missing. Yes, it is the number one thing missing in our training. I say this about, educator preparation and actually college education in general. Number one thing missing is us looking at what shaped us and who we are. Because I tell people all the time, listen, racism, classism, sexism, heterosexism, cisgender normative behavior, all of that walks in the room with us, whether we like it or not.
Yep.
And we have to do some intentional work to bring that stuff to our awareness in order for us to do something about it.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because people try to say that they don't have biases. They absolutely do. Wow. And if you're not aware of what your biases are, or that you have them, and you're not doing more listening, more active listening, and trying to learn and unlearn and relearn, then you're missing the game.
That's right.
I went in 2020. I went in 2019, 2020, when world's on fire. And in my HR consulting, I'm being asked to do a lot of more DEI work than I've ever done.
Okay.
And I start turning people down because I see that we're box checking, and I don't want to associate my name to that. But the interesting thing was that I learned for myself that a lot of things that I had previously thought of, I was wrong. And I needed to back up the bus and figure out what I was carrying in and unlearn some things that I was dead. No, I know this. This is where I stand and this is where I'm at. And some people that I love dearly called me out in a good way to like, hey, I'm just going to challenge you to look at things a little bit differently. And I'm thankful that I have people in my circle that will do exactly what you're talking about, bring you in, because they did that to bring me in. Jason, you're affecting these other people. You're having these conversations. I need to bring you in, and let's talk about how we're phrasing things and what we're saying and what we're doing. So I love, I just a big shout out to what you're talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, and I have a background in sociology. I'm studying, right? Like I'm in a space where we're studying and finding out that there are inequalities and equities in our society. So I know that I would know a little bit more, right, than the average person that's not studying, who hasn't studied sociology since I guess I was about 17 years old. I went to college young. So, when I think about the introspection about what has shaped us, right, beyond our family members, that's what's missing. A lot of people will be like, they can connect to what they learned from parents and other caregivers, other family members, but not what they're catching out in the world. And mainly because it's coming from so many different sources that it's embedded in our psyche. And that's where this unconscious bias comes in. Right? I'm not a psychologist. They can explain, how the brain works much better than but I know that we all have been, we've all caught and have been taught messaging that disconnects us from each other. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little more about this concept, meritocracy. Okay. Just as an example for us in the US context, right? We were taught by many different sources, schools, mass media, government, family members, just to name a few, that if you work hard, you will be successful. Right or wrong, Jason?
Oh, right. Absolutely right.
Okay. And the what's implied in success is financially successful. Correct? Okay. There's no wonder that so many people think that people living in poverty are not working hard because they are not financially successful. When in fact, they are the hardest working folks. Many of them are the hardest working people that I know, and many of us know, especially doing physical labor, working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
What we're not trained to do is to look at the policies, look at the structures that create poverty and address those systemic forces that keep poverty in place. Instead, we develop a disdain for the people. We're taught to do that. We are taught to do that. So ingrained in us. I argue that we can't connect with the most vulnerable among us without examining what we were exposed to and how that impacts our current thinking and behavior. But when you do the work, we can change our mindsets and our behavior will follow. We can connect to people in so many ways that are meaningful to them and in ways that we had not before.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
We've got 44% of the working population in the United States makes below living wage.
Yes.
We have a lot of work to do.
That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people. Yes.
Those, as you mentioned, those aren't people that are sitting. They're not lazy. They're working, as you said, sometimes multiple jobs, and they still can't make enough to take care of themselves and their family.
That's right.
That's it's insanity.
And many of the people pointing the finger are implicated, right, in creating these kinds of policies. Thank you, Jody. oh, oh, okay, Jody. And so, many of us, right? Like, I'm not going to exclude myself. I grew up. I didn't know we were poor. All my needs were met. I guess my definition of poverty looked different. Like, I thought, people who were homeless, people who missed the meal, like, that was not my experience. But when I was around 35, my mom shared with me the highest wage she made. So we were poor. Okay,
Yeah.
like, we were living in poverty. And while I did not want to remain in living in poverty, and I don't want it for anybody, right? Like, I don't want that for anybody, but especially in my family, I did believe that, and I do believe that education, right, formal education is a way to increase our income, right, and it changes your social class. It does, but it's only one vehicle. It is one vehicle, but it is one that I'm, like, clearly entrenched in, right? 36 years. I believe in education. And we know that, someone with a college education, at least at one point, I don't know, it might have changed since 2020, but at one point, people who had a college education would be able to make, like, at least $1 million in their lifetime. And the amount that you would potentially make in your lifetime would be limited with less, quote unquote, education, formal education, right? So, yeah, I don't want to belabor that too much. We have two other keys.
Yes.
Yes, we have two other keys, and that interdependent thinking is the other. Now, this is tied to our interdependence as humans. We need each other. Now, I initially understood that concept from a spiritual perspective, right? That we need each other. We were all created for a purpose, and we need each other. Yes, we're better together, but we need each other in some way. So something locked in for me, right? Something locked in for me that it was real simple. It calls us to believe that everyone adds value. So developing that interdependent thinking that everybody I encounter adds some kind of value to me is critical, because we were created for a purpose. And then you seek to add value to everyone. Otherwise, like, what you here for? Like, really, like, what are you here for if you're not seeking to add value? And I looked up some definitions for value, and I liked one that said, if you value something or someone, you think that they are important. Period.
That's perfect.
Period. And that has been something that I always, but part of my core value was to always see people. Maybe it wasn't all my life, but probably the majority of my adult life, that I always would think, when I encounter a new person, what value is getting ready to be added to me? Like, I really believe that we touch and agree. Like, I encounter, when you're in my space or we're in the same space, might be a reason for both of us.
Yeah.
For both of us. So it is, I'm asking people to think about themselves, right, in the introspection, but it also takes you out to looking at your positionality, like, in how you are connected to other people and what you learned about yourself in relation to others. We're here together for some grand plan or plans. I just truly believe that. So when we are interdependent, we are if we believe that we're interdependent, then we must ask ourselves, how can this other person or other people bring value? And just believe that they will in some way. It could be a small way or in large ways. You never know. I've had so many instances in my life where I'm like, wow, like I came to an event to celebrate someone and I connected with someone, about a job or, another opportunity that I wasn't even there for. It doesn't have to be something for financial gain either, right? It could just be something that helps us elevate our humanity as well. My podcast, Rooted to Thrive, conversations to elevate, that conversations that elevate our humanity, that was born out of just this care that I feel like we need to return to, if we were ever there as a country. But this care we need to take to honor human dignity. Like the work that we do in my company, I talk about transformation, right? We're the people you come to when you really want some change, because we take people through a change process. Transformation has always been key, right? I'm solutions oriented, right? And humble enough to believe that I can do better. And if I can do better, everyone can do better.
Love that.
Yeah, it's a way not to give up on other human beings.
I was in an author's call earlier today where in a group that I'm part of called the Outlier Project that I mentioned earlier, one of our sponsors, these guys had two authors and they were writing about 10 different bad bosses and how that comes out. Well, one of the key elements in all of this, besides their own admission that they had been part of these bad bosses and that they identified with multiple versions of these bad bosses. But the fact was that you can still learn. You can still learn not only, hey, things not to do, but from people that are in this place that are bad bosses, and learn what you want to do and how you can be better. So it struck me because we have this, just like you said before, we have this thing where we love to call people out. We like to call people out to the carpet. This is toxic. These are toxic people. It's a toxic work environment. Well, what does that actually even mean? And I don't want to go off on that topic or in that tangent, because this is not about that. But it does apply to kind of what you're saying, because we have to be able to look and know, not just think about it, but know that everybody is going to bring value into the conversation. And if we open ourselves, humble ourselves to not be the center of the room, and open up ourselves to rely on that goodness, that, hey, we're gonna listen, and we're going to bring in and invite everybody to speak and to hear them and to be psychologically safe to share.
Yes.
Then we're going to learn together.
Yes.
And we're going to grow together. So I love that. I love that so much.
Oh, good stuff. Yes. And I do want to close it out with that third key to authentic connection. And it is listening. You mentioned it earlier, right? And many people do talk about active listening, right? This is the listening that gives you access to talk to people about what they want to talk about. Yes. And it's also a connection around commonalities. Yes. When you listen, you're able to hear people. But here's the thing about listening across difference. In our American culture, right? We have to understand our social context. We're in a culture that places value on assimilation. That's compliance. It's another way of saying compliance. And depends on depends on the industry you're in. Just run with it. We value competition, hierarchy, correct? All right. Now, hierarchy, I'm going to sit there for a minute. That's how the supremacy of whiteness, maleness, cisgender, able-bodied, heterosexuality, dominant religious affiliations continue to thrive. And for most, if not all of us, it's in our unconscious minds, and we are perpetuating past generations' curses, but in different forms. And if you want everyone to have what they need, that's what we call equity. How can we also promote supremacy of any identity? We have to be mindful that because of these structures that are ingrained in our psyche, and the differences in power and privilege that people have based on their identities, we experience living in this same context differently in ways we won't understand from our own lived experiences. So we must, when we listen, we must believe people. Believe them. I know it could be easy to be in denial, right? That the lived experiences people are telling you about are not true because you don't have that context. Just believe them. Why would they tell you if it wasn't true? Right? Like people get off by telling you people stereotype and they experience microaggressions and right? Or are they're feeling psychologically unsafe. Like who gets off when telling people that? And there are legions of people, right, who are having these experiences. Now, they may not come to you with solutions, but what I'm saying to anyone who is listening, understand that your experience is different. Now, I mean, if you live in the household with other people, you know you have different experiences. Those of us who are lifetime partnered, right, we know that this other person was raised by different people, and although when the initial love feelings and and the is over, you're like, okay, why do you put the fork sitting up when I want to put the fork sitting down, right? That's their reality, right? And you find a compromise across that difference because you want to keep that relationship. Well, why wouldn't you want to do that with me? Why across difference? Why wouldn't you want to do that with Chasen across difference?
Yeah.
Because we're human and we need each other. I believe for us to have a win-win, for us all to have more people, all of us really to have a good life where we all win, we have to think that way.
I love that.
Yes.
It's a great perspective because it takes you out of that silo of just you,
right,
and opens you up to everything else.
Yes, and I think if you're not a hermit, like what it's hard for me to understand. Well, it's not hard. I understand that it does have a lot to do with how the brain works and how we are wired as humans. And unfortunately, the conditioning that occurs from outside sources can help many of us just focus inward, and on our own. Listen, and again, in American society, there's a culture of individualism. Look out for yourself. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. None of that happens by yourself. You can act like it does, but it doesn't.
Right?
Right? It doesn't. Like you pulling what up from a bootstrap, right? Like you have to connect with other people even to make the sale or to make the money that you're pulling yourself up to make. Other people are involved. We're connected. And this transactional culture, I think will kill us. It's killing us. It's killing us slowly. And I'm just wishing that more, not just wishing, but I will stand firm until my last breath to help anybody who will listen, that we need to break out of that fog, and begin to intentionally connect across these things that divide us. And listen, I'm not, I'm not sitting on a soapbox around change. I have been in situations where I didn't know something. I'm an educator, right? And in higher education, well, it may be, I'm sure it's at every level, but definitely in higher education, you are rewarded for what you know. You can stand in front of a classroom and just talk at people, and people comply and listen and try to take notes and, follow along with you. Fortunately, I don't teach that way. um, but uh, in those spaces, I have felt challenged when I didn't know something. So years ago, I went to a workshop and they were talking about queering the classroom, and they really were talking about using pronouns before it, was again in the public discourse. And I remember they just wanted us, they were just at the end, my takeaway was ask everybody for their pronouns. It took me a minute to do it. It took me a minute to ask because I was totally in the binary, right? Like there's just he and she, and, men and women. I don't know anything about non binary identity. But again, like this person that wants everyone to have justice, wants everyone to feel included, safe, have their needs met. I want to do it, but I was frozen for a while because I did not want to like open up this can, right? And not be able to say anything else, but I just know everybody's pronouns. Like seriously. And eventually I did. I mean, but I'm talking years that I didn't do it. And I eventually did it, and life was okay. I survived.
You're
But
still here.
yeah, but I also, and I'm a professional development junkie, right? Like I provide professional development, and I want to learn as much as I can as well. So I did go and get training, and this was after the fact, but I did go get training to help me understand transgender identity better because it was not something I was exposed to for many, many years of my life. I think I was maybe my 30s, 40s, even when I'm first hearing about transgender identity. So I'm an educator. So I feel like educators should keep we need to sharpen our skills at all times. And I'm also a social justice focused educator. I couldn't stand in front of students and talk about social justice issues, and I wasn't going to do the work myself, although many people do. But, I believe that true educators would, right? Like that's what we are supposed to do as a part of our practice. And so I did learn more and learn some really important lessons. But let me tell you, then when I was boldly after that, right? Like so after I understand trans and non-binary identities better, I'm ready. I'm going to do the pronouns in my classroom. And guess what happened? One of my students um, identified as used male pronouns. or, and gender neutral pronouns like he and they. For 3 class sessions, I mispronounced the person. And there was part of the reason for me was that, once I look back on it, was that I was seeing a person that presented for me as feminine. 1. 2, I had met the person before they were in my class with a different name. And I believe at the time, because of the space we were in, they did not identify with those pronouns, or it didn't come up. So I was left to what my mind, made up about this person. Fortunately, fortunately, I had a student in my class who would check me at the end of class, like, yes, like, Professor P, you messed up. Okay, you messed up. You did it again. You did it again. And of course, this person, I'm constantly mispronouncing them because I'm constantly talking about the person, because the person is active in class, right? Like, they're saying a lot of things, so I'm referring back to what they're saying. Well, on like that 3rd class period, I'm sorry, it's not the 3rd, it was 5 class periods, but over 2 weeks, right? So I hear myself in that last time, and I stopped business as usual and asked the group, because I'm in a classroom, did anybody else hear what I did? Right? I was like, I just made a big mistake. Did anybody else hear it? The only people in the room that heard it were the person that is trans, a student who identified as gay, and a student who identified as asexual. No one else noticed it. And see, I would have publicly, right, if I did not take responsibility.
But you called yourself out.
I had to, and
that's the great thing, that you're doing the work. You mentioned it earlier, and I was going to stop you then, but I said no, I'm going to let her go because she's on a roll.
Okay.
But you keep doing the work, and that's what we need so much. We need more Professor P's that are willing to stand up and stand in the gap and say, no, I'm gonna keep doing this. And so I applaud you.
Thank you. Yes, taking a stand, being vulnerable, seeing yourself as winning only when others win too. There's enough to go around. There really is. And more of us have to understand that, right? Like, that we have to get it, that really when you look back over your life, yep, you didn't have to step over anybody to get what you have.
Right.
And wouldn't it be so much more fruitful and really fulfilling for your soul if other people won because you helped them win? And you win at the same time, right? That's the win, right? The fulfillment of your soul.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, this was like a master class in like all things. My goodness. I hope that the audience has enjoyed this as much as I have, because this is incredible. Wow. Incredible. I want to give you an opportunity. Any last thoughts before we close out? Anything that you'd like to share with the audience? And I'm going to flash up your website here again. I've been kind of putting it up every once in a while, but I want to give you the mic again to just, close us out.
Okay, well, the one thing that I will say, if you haven't figured it out yet, that, I think my company motto says it all, that change minds, change direction. Yes. And although our wonderful brains don't like change, they don't, right? But because they don't, we have to be intentional, committed, and execute. We have to be intentional, committed, and execute if we want something to change. And that's how we change our minds.
Wow.
Yes. So I thank you all for listening, being a part of this conversation. You can find us on many different platforms. Well, I'm not going to say many, mostly on LinkedIn, Instagram, and we have a Facebook page. So at LinkedIn, we're Perceptions with an S. And on Instagram and Facebook, it's Perceptions Unlimited.
And
Okay.
we will make sure that we've got your links in with the comments. But
Yeah.
this has been absolutely fantastic. I can't thank you enough for being here. Give it up. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, for being in the audience. Thank you to all our sponsors. And we will catch you next time. Have a great evening, everyone.